Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. I am your resident active advocate, and I just attempted to say in sign, my name is Lily. I don't know whether I got it right. Someone please inform me who knows better than I do. I think that's how you do it. I'm doing today's episode on deafness in the media. Sorry about my lack of Friday episode, but I did manage to spend some time with my mom. Mostly just cleaning the house, but it was fine. Um, so to begin on this topic, there is a difference that I want to outline between deaf lowercase d and deaf uppercase d. Deaf lowercase d refers to the physical difference itself, which is the inability to hear or to hear fully, whereas deaf capital D refers to the culture of deafness. You have to understand that ASL, or any form of sign, is its own language. Regardless of whether a language is spoken or not, it can still constitute a language. In the case of sign, it, like any other language, activates both Broca and Wernicke's areas in the brain. I always get these two confused, but one of them is for speech production. I believe that's Broca. And then the other, Wernicke's area, I believe is for speech comprehension. So when sign is being used, you are using the same parts of the brain as a spoken language. You are invoking the same reactions culturally as a spoken language, because being organized around this language, deaf people are able to form their own culture. There has been backlash and resistance against this throughout history, and especially when ASL was first being invented. But there were, before ASL was introduced in America, sign languages of a sort being used amongst indigenous tribes. You would get, say, an Ojibwe and a Iroquois, but they could not understand one another's languages. But there was a form of intertribal ASL, or not ASL, but sign, by which tribes could understand one another, and especially when it came to matters of trade and land entry and things like that. That is not, however, the same as ASL. So far as I am aware, the indigenous cultures did not have a hand in developing ASL to any extent. But ASL is, like the indigenous sign, its own language, and it is meant to be cross-culturally understood, at least with English speakers. It's called American Sign Language because there may be, as far as I'm aware, different signs for different sorts of dialects. But, I honestly don't know that much about sign. I know basically the alphabet, or most of the alphabet, and the signs that I just made for my name is. But that's about it. There are definitely going to be people in my audience who are much more highly informed about this than I am. The whole point is, though, that a deaf culture, capital D, can be organized around this language, just as a culture can be organized around speaking English or speaking Swedish or speaking German or Dutch or anything, right? And with this culture comes certain, not necessarily expectations, but certain standards. There are people, let's take the example of cochlear implants. There are people within the deaf community who are very much against cochlear implants because to them, it is stripping away what makes their culture their culture. And I am not in a position to agree or disagree with any of this. Personally, I'm in this case against the medical model, which would be the quote fixing of the physical difference through cochlear implant. I think that having the ability to form a specific culture and a distinct culture around such a difference is just the same as forming a culture around any other language, around any other difference. It's no different. I don't understand why it should be seen as a quote inferior culture and have to be quote fixed by cochlear implants or even by hearing aids. It depends on your method. It depends on how your ears function or don't function. But I know people who are very much for cochlear implants. I know people who are very much against cochlear implants. But when it comes to deafness in the media, getting into the meat of this, you will find in children's media more of a support for the deaf community because you've all seen those little cartoons and Baby Einstein and things like that that attempt to teach children basic ASL and then they can further their learning as they grow up. In adult media, however, you will see the exact reverse of that. There's oftentimes a great deal of mockery around deafness or just glib little jokes. I mean, I remember this one little skit on The Simpsons where I think it's like Grandpa Simpson doesn't want to listen to Homer going on, so he just turns off his hearing aid and, sits back, pretends to listen, whereas in reality he can't hear a word Homer is saying. There's that sort of nonchalant attitude towards deafness in adult media, but at the same time, I think it's meant to be clever that you can use your disability to your advantage. So this is a double-edged knife. It's in one degree sort of mocking the fact that Grandpa is deaf, but on the other hand, he doesn't want to hear what Homer has to say anyway. So turning off his hearing aid, he doesn't have to. And I think that that is both nuanced and very pretty, very beautiful, because you can use your physical difference to your advantage. I don't recommend milking your physical difference for advantage because that sort of gives a bad name to people with disabilities in general. And that might definitely be an aspect of what Grandpa Simpson is doing. But he's only doing it to Homer, and Homer's an idiot. So there's not much respect in that dynamic. But when it comes more to children's media, as I say, there's a greater acceptance, it seems, of deafness, both capital and lowercase d. But at the same time, it's almost treated as some kind of novelty that people who are deaf, people who are not deaf, both can learn this skill, which is true. Anyone can learn any language. I mean, I don't speak Polish, but I could probably attempt at least to pick it up because my sister married a Polish man and he would have Polish speaking relatives, so I could always go to them for lessons. But it's not necessarily a form of cultural appropriation, while at the same time it kind of is treated as sort of this, you can use this in this setting kind of skill, like any other language, like I say, but it almost, like, it's trying to increase the awareness of deaf, capital D, culture. But at the same time, it's like a lot of people might think, where am I ever going to use this skill? How does this apply? Why should I even bother? Well, in that frame of mind, it would be the same as learning any other quote novelty, like a person with vision learning Braille. I don't personally believe that that is necessarily appropriation. I honestly think that it all depends on the spirit with which you approach these things. If you are learning ASL for the sake of becoming more learned and more open-minded, and if you are teaching your child ASL for the same reasons, then awesome, go ahead, do it. And that is a good thing, and especially if you're approaching it with the mindset of acceptance. If, However, you are approaching it as just another skill and look at what I can do because, novelty, that kind of thing. That I believe is very condescending. There's no need for that. And I think that open mindedness is a really beautiful thing, and especially towards other cultures that we do not necessarily belong to. So, very nuanced issue, but the nuance tends to fade as the media grows. Like I say, children's media promotes the open mindedness, adult media, not as much. It's more a tool of mockery yet again, and I've discussed mockery of disability in media, but that trend often continues with various disability groups. It doesn't have to be one or another. There's acceptance, there's non-acceptance, but people have to find and draw their own line for where a thing should be done and where a thing should not be done. I do not advocate, thank you, for mockery on any scope. Like, if you're just learning ASL as a sort of novelty trick, look what I can do. Don't bother. If you're learning it for the sake of acceptance, as I say, go ahead, wonderful, awesome. And, for the sake of increasing your own knowledge base. But at the same time, I would definitely advocate for speaking to someone within the deaf community who knows way more about this than I do, about their views on appropriation versus understanding, and versus, getting to know the community, not necessarily to immerse yourself within the community, but just to understand that they are equally valuable with any other community who speaks any other language. There's no, as I've been outlining throughout this series, there's no superior versus inferior. It should all be treated as even. And, we should all attempt to get along through communication and understanding. All right, so that is my video for today. I'm not entirely sure yet what tomorrow's topic is going to be. I don't know if you can tell. I'm kind of tired today. But I will think about that and get back to you tomorrow for a new vid on a new topic about some form of disability in the media. All right, thank you for your attention. I hope this has been at least partially informative. Like I say, talk to people within your community, within the deaf community. This is an important issue since it's a very prevalent disability, on the physical side of things at least. So do that and don't be a jerk about it. Thank you. All right. Have a good day. Bye. Mwah.